Hey everybody, welcome back to The Witcher 3. We're going to take some time in this episode to go over some of the characters and some of the bestiary entries. But before we do that, something very important that we spotted along the road on the way back here. We've got what appears to be a skull. It looks like the bird skull from our vision. And yes, it is.
In black crystal. Why do I think this is Yen's?
Oh, because we saw the bird near Yennefer. So, let's check this out, shall we? It's a crystal skull. I didn't need to complete a quest, but we don't know what for just yet. So that's good, we have it, and we'll probably find out later. I came back to this spot because it just seemed like a good spot to reminisce and read about some of our old pals and some of our new ones as well, like the beasts that we've run into. So without further delay, let's get into it. And let's start with the characters. So first up, we have Cirilla. Cirilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon. What can I possibly say about her? That we call her Ciri for short, that she was born in 1251, and that she has ashen hair and a scar on her cheek? It's all true, and that's the Cirilla I know best, the one I first laid eyes upon those many years ago. The one who seemed thoroughly, well, not ordinary, but certainly not as extraordinary as she in fact is. For Cirilla is also a highly skilled witcher, heiress to several thrones, the last bearer of the Elder Blood, a powerful source endowed with exceptional magic talent, and the Lady of Time and Space. Her hair color and date of birth seem rather incidental now, don't they? I could also tell you that she is Geralt's adopted daughter, but that would be a gross simplification. Ciri is much more. She is his destiny, his unexpected child, someone bound to the Witcher by fate's most inextricably tangled fetters. It's funny because Yennefer in the books always called her Surprise, and on top of that, Ugly, the ugly one. Yeah, the child Surprise, that is a big deal in the books, and I bet you we'll kind of uncover some of that stuff as the game progresses, but it does reference it here, the unexpected child. Following age-old Witcher tradition, Geralt took Ciri to Kaer Morhen when she came into his care. There he and Vesemir taught her in the ways of the professional monster slayer. It was then that her magic talents were first revealed, and they discovered she was a source. Ciri's gift proved a curse as well. Because of it, she would one day have to hide from the entire world, even Geralt. So, a little bit more about the child surprise thing. There was, I guess, well, her father that Geralt ran into and helped out, and ended up saying, okay, so as payment, you're going to promise to me that which you have but do not yet know, or something along those lines. And that ended up being this unborn child because the guy's wife was pregnant with Ciri. So Geralt came to collect, took Ciri, and that kind of started their journey together. I'm really simplifying it, there's a lot of backstory there, but that's the gist of it. The other thing that's interesting, and it doesn't mention it yet, I assume that these get updated over time. Maybe I'm wrong there, but Triss was the one who originally kind of pointed out to the Witchers at Kaer Morhen that Ciri's a little bit more than just a girl. Like, she's a source, she's very powerful. And Triss was the one who kind of talked to Ciri about more of her womanly side, I guess, and got her to kind of understand a little bit more about herself, and that she wasn't just this brash Witcher, but she was also a woman, and that's a little bit different in the Witcher world. So I thought that was interesting that they left that out, but maybe we run into, we will run into Triss. Maybe this will get updated down the road, maybe it won't. So then she goes to study at the Temple of Melitele under the priestess Nenneke, and from there really started to develop her relationship with Yennefer. And Geralt had asked Yennefer to come and school Ciri, at least that's what the books say so far, and they didn't really like each other at first, Ciri and Yennefer. And so they kind of just forced themselves onto each other, and then by the end of the first Blood of Elves book, they were like pretty much inseparable. Like Yennefer taught Ciri how to use her magic, how to use and abuse her looks, I guess. She taught her how to take care of herself, and Ciri really looked up to Yennefer at the end, and I thought that it was kind of an interesting dynamic that the two had. But we're going to learn a lot about Ciri as we go, so let's move on to Dandelion. I would wager anyone that you, dear reader, are a person of culture and taste, and therefore already familiar with me, Dandelion, and the role I am to play in the following tale. Yep, very subtle. Nevertheless, allow me to sketch a few lines by way of self-portrait for the sake of thoroughness, and in the event that you have spent much of the last century in some dark corner where the light of my star has yet to reach. Born in 1229, a talented poet and troubadour, a graduate of Oxenfurt Academy, a frequent performer at royal courts, an unequaled lover appreciated and in some cases adored by ladies worldwide, a skilled negotiator, and a stirring orator. Such is the image of the bard Dandelion as painted by his friends and promoters. Really doesn't hold back, does he? And it's also should be stated that quite obviously this is written, all of these entries are written from the perspective of Dandelion, so no doubt that he's going to pump himself up as much as possible. This image is, of course, somewhat overbright in its coloring. I personally prefer to think of myself as a dedicated artist in thrall to his muse, one whose mark has benefited immeasurably from the fact that I was, am, and forever will remain a close friend and steadfast companion to the Witcher Geralt. It is his fate I chronicle in this present work, and his story which I shall sing till the end of my days. It doesn't say here, but in the short stories he was known as Jaskier. The literal translation of that from Polish, I believe is Polish, is Buttercup. So cool little nickname for good old Dandy. Eskel. All Witchers have a great deal in common, but with Eskel and Geralt, the similarities are particularly striking. They first met as two boys of the same age swinging wooden swords at Kaer Morhen. They then went through an ordeal together, the first round of selections, the murderous changes, the trial of the grasses, and training on the Gauntlet, the Witcher's daunting obstacle course. They also received hidings together for more than one act of childish delinquency. When they became adults, they walked the path separately, but they reconvened at Kaer Morhen nearly every winter to wait out the cold, drink to their successes, and remember fallen comrades. Though Eskel never gained Geralt's renown, he equaled the White Wolf in experience and carried out his contracts with care and efficiency. Death had almost taken him many times during his hunts, yet in an iconic twist, the hideous scar on his face came not from a monster's claw, but from the blade of Deidre Adamane, his highly unpredictable, unexpected child. Very interesting. I'd like to learn more about that, actually. Geralt of Rivia. So, many cannot fathom the friendship Geralt of Rivia and I, Dandelion, have shared all these years. When we first began breaking bread together, spiteful tongues said he'd be better off cutting my throat and dumping my body in a hollow tree, before I provoked someone else into doing the same to us both. Those individuals spoke out of pure jealousy, for Geralt was my dearest friend, a fact which he gave ample evidence of on numerous occasions. I could say a great deal about the world-famous monster hunter, the man known in Elder Speech as Gwynblade, or in our younger yet no less noble tongue, as the White Wolf. For Geralt of Rivia is a truly exceptional individual. A brief encounter might tempt one to label him a mere swinger of swords, a simple monster catcher, a rough and tumble practitioner of a dirty trade, but peer closer and you will soon discover he is a man of unplumbed depths, unique views, and a vast, world-spanning experience. On the surface, he is introverted, tight-lipped, one might even say gruff, but underneath lies an overflowing sea of goodwill, good humor, and an honest readiness to help his friends, be it that a bit of sound advice or the masterful application of his blade. Setting aside cumbersome false modesty, I can say that I know his story much better than any man alive. I was with him through hard times and good, helping with wise advice, warm words, and razor wit. As a result, I am a vital part of his story, both in its earlier and present portions. It is thus my duty to continue my chronicle and, for the benefit of future generations, put in writing the next chapter of his deeds and exploits. Thank you for publishing such a polished tale, Dandelion. Leaves out a couple of things about Witchers in general, and I guess perhaps it's because it's Witchers in general that it's not spoken about here in this entry. But it doesn't really talk about Geralt remaining neutral at all costs. And I hesitate to talk about this because it's not specific to Geralt, but I'm going to talk about it anyways. So Witchers, they have a code, right? And part of that code, there's a few things that fall into place. Number one is that their core kind of responsibility in the world is to hunt and kill monsters, but not just to do it, but to do it for a price. So seek out those that are in need of your services, offer them something that they can't do themselves, which is hunting the monsters, and then get paid in return. The other thing, though, is that witchers tend to remain neutral, and Geralt is a huge believer in that. And I remember when he was telling Ciri about this originally, Ciri was kind of like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You have to help the poor, and you have to help the defenseless. And he was like, no, you have to remain neutral. And she wholeheartedly believed that. I think that she eventually learns to believe that neutrality is best, obviously with heavy influence from Geralt. But there's one place that neutrality doesn't quite fit with the Witchers, and it's for those that they love. And if somebody like Yennefer or Ciri or Triss or another Witcher of their school, somebody that they're close to, is in danger, all other things go aside and they will help that person. So they're not neutral to the point of blindness, but they try not to get involved in affairs that don't concern them. Unless, of course, money's involved, and that tends to change a lot. So, we'll probably learn a lot about that as we go. But Lambert, the youngest among the Witchers of Kaer Morhen, and perhaps the last ever trained within its walls, by the start of our tale, Lambert has proven his chops many times over, having hunted down many a mighty beast and traversed nearly all of the continent's realms several times over. Yet he had also developed a reputation for arrogance and sardonic humor, and his gruff and at times excessively blunt manner could irritate even his fellow Witchers of the School of the Wolf. Whatever his vices, it went without saying that Lambert would brave the fires of any hell for his companions. Very cool. So it mentions Eskel, it mentions Lambert, Vesemir we'll get to, but it doesn't mention Cohen yet, and I wonder if we'll run into Cohen, or perhaps something happens to him in the books that I haven't quite gotten to, but we'll see. He's another Witcher. Vesemir. So, Vesemir was the oldest living member of the Wolf School, and most likely the oldest Witcher of any school on the continent. About as long in years as the ruins of Kaer Morhen themselves, and though eternally complaining about his creaky bones, this master of the Witcher trade gave no thought to a well-deserved retirement. Gray but still spry, he continued to ply the monster hunting trade into his golden years, effectively too, as he'd seen more beasts than all his students put together. A harsh and demanding instructor in Geralt's youth, over the years he had become something of an adopted father and mentor to the other Witchers, always ready to help with sage advice and steady hands. In the spring of 1272, when our story begins, Vesemir had joined Geralt on his search for Yennefer, trekking with him through war-ravaged Temeria, and now I believe is sitting in the tavern waiting for us. So I wonder how long he's going to stay there. It doesn't say it here, but one of the I guess fondest memories I have of Vesemir, and it's kind of silly, but I'm not sure why this stands out, but he's always picking on Triss. So Triss goes to Kaer Morhen because Geralt asks her to come and help out with Ciri, and Triss and Vesemir kind of have, like, the way I would describe it is like a grandfather to granddaughter kind of teasing relationship, where he's always calling her Marigold, 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 and she hates that, right? But he keeps doing it, and he knows it bugs her, but I know that deep down they care for each other very much. But that just stands out to me. He's this rough and tumble kind of guy, but he's compassionate as well. So very interesting character. I'm glad that he's here. Actually, very glad that he's here. I'm interested to see what happens with him. Last but not least for now, Yennefer of Vengerberg. So the Witcher first met the raven-haired sorceress a good 20 years back. Their friendship and the feelings between them were born of a common adventure involving a genie. Actually, in the book, it's referred to as a djinn, D-J-I-N-N, and a wish granted to Geralt that intertwined their fates inextricably. In the time since then, their relationship had, however, been quite stormy. That's an understatement. Rich in ups and downs, crises and breakups. Geralt and Yennefer's love provides irrefutable proof of the thesis that opposites attract. A few years ago, Geralt and Yennefer had, after a long separation full of adventures for them both, gotten back together again. Their moment of repose was interrupted by the wild hunt which took Yennefer captive. The Witcher set out at once to save her, but lost his memory while doing so. When he finally recovered it, he immediately set off once more on his quest to find his beloved sorceress. It's going to be interesting when we do eventually find her. We're going to basically say, yeah, so we've been gone all this time, and we lost our memory. And she's going to be like, yeah, Like, they're not going to believe that for a second. Right? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to running into Yennefer. She's very powerful, well regarded among even her peers as being one of the most powerful wizards or sorceresses, and I'm just excited to see our interactions with her, and I think she's going to be a great character. We'll have to see. That's all of our characters for now. Anybody new that we run into that we get an entry for, or as I'm hoping these entries get updated, we will come back and read those immediately as they happen. So let's move on to the Bestiary. Here we go. So we've got a couple of things. We've got beasts, hybrids, necrophages, and specters. Let's start with our first entry in the beast. These are wolves. So they are vulnerable against beast oil. Well, that makes sense. Fair enough. Let's read about wolves. So a friend of mine used to say that all of these griffins and basilisks and whatnot, good old-fashioned wolves weren't nothing to worry about. Then the damn beast devoured half his flock. Ingvar, a shepherd. So once upon a time, wolves were the absolute rulers of the forest. Men used them to frighten children, while adults too trembled at the sound of their howling. Post-conjunction monsters not only pushed wolves into the deepest wilds, but also took over their place in human nightmares. So post-conjunction is referring to the conjunction of spheres, which is kind of this event that set all these monsters into play in this universe. Monsters would kind of come into our world, and then witchers would try to take care of them. I'm really simplifying that, but that's what that's referencing. Yet this does not mean the old predators cease to be a danger. Wolves do not have a drop of magic within them, breathe no fire, and spit no acid, but that in no way stops them from killing unwary travelers and hunters and witchers. Particularly dangerous are wargs, a nasty and ferocious subspecies of wolf, and the snow white wolves, which today can only be found in the wild highlands of the Skellig archipelago. Very cool. Okay, so now we've got hybrids. Let's read about griffins first of all. They're vulnerable against grape shot bombs, hybrid oil. Okay, cool. So that's a really good thing I should point out here. So beasts, they are vulnerable, or wolves are vulnerable to beast oil. Anything within this category will probably be vulnerable to beast oil. Anything within hybrids going to be vulnerable to hybrid oil. And then last but not least, we've got the Ard sign. So I'll have to keep that in mind because we do have a griffin contract to deal with here to get some information on Yennefer from the Nilfgaardian guy. So griffins, half eagle, half tomcat, just like on the Lord's crest, except this one was carrying me dead cow instead of the scepter. It's a griffin attack witness, name unknown. Griffins were once only found high in the mountains where they could hunt marmots and wild goats. When humans encroached on their lands, however, griffins soon discovered a new source of much more plentiful and easier caught prey: cows, sheep, and shepherds. Though still wary of main roads and towns where folk with the means to hire a witcher are likely to dwell, these half-eagle, half-wildcat creatures have gone from rarities to oft-encountered pests known throughout the northern realms. Especially hated are the subspecies known as royal griffins, and arch-griffins. Very interesting. Okay, now I've got necrophages, which are vulnerable against necrophage oil, obviously, and against igni, so fire. All right. So we know drowners, but let's read up on them anyways. When at the water's edge, you gotta be quiet. First of all, as to not scare the fish. Second, so that you don't attract drowners. Yannick of Blaviken, a fisherman. A drowner resembles a corpse dredged from the bottom of a pond. It is sickly blue or green in color, with slime and sludge oozing out of every pore and the acrid stench of rot wafting off of it. This is why it is often thought drowners, along with their more dangerous cousins vodniks, mucknixers, and drowned dead, arise from the bodies of those who drown in shallow water. Lost travelers falling into bogs, children who swim too far from the shore, or in the case of vodniks, inebriated peasants who stumble off narrow swamp trails. Very cool. We also have ghouls, which are vulnerable against necrophage oil again. Those look really cool. Ghouls creep and crawl at night, eating everything in sight. In a snap, they'd eat you too, chop you up for a ghoulish stew. This is a nice little children's rhyme. Yeah, it's quite nice for kids. Very Dr. Seussy. Ghouls and graveyears are hard to describe. In part, they resemble humans, yet on the whole, they are the utter negation of all that is human. Though they have arms and legs like men, they walk on all fours like dogs or badgers. Though they have eerily familiar faces, one searches them in vain for any sign of sentiment, reason, or even a spark of consciousness. They're driven by one thing and one thing only, an insatiable craving for human flesh. Okay. Last but not least, we have, let's actually close these up so it's nice and clean. We have specters. We have 3 here. So night wraiths, vulnerable against moon dust. Very interesting. Specter oil, makes sense. And the Erden sign. Okay, cool. So night wraiths exude this immense sadness, this helpless wrath. I fear them, same as anyone, but most of all, I feel sorry for them. Aline Altspar Elvin Troberitz. Compared to other creatures of the night, Catawakans, Necurats, and werewolves, for example, night wraiths and their rarer cousins dusk wraiths might not seem all that dangerous. After all, one might ask, how much harm could a pale, withered woman in a tattered dress do? The answer, quite a bit. Instead of finding this out the hard way, avoid crossing fields and meadows at night at all costs. Like noon wraiths, night wraiths are only found in rural areas. Travelers fall victim to them most often, but if legends are to be believed, they also sneak into huts at times and murder peasants in their sleep. When they attack, night wraiths remain immaterial for most of the time, meaning physical blows pass right through them. They only take on more tangible form for the brief moments in which they strike. When weakened, they will create several projectiles of themselves, which cannot attack directly, but act as transmitters of sorts through which the night wraith can sap her victim's vital energy. That seems devastating. Night wraiths can turn immaterial and are at such times very difficult to wound. In order to force one to take on corporeal form, trap it with the Erden sign or hit it with the blast of a moondust bomb. Beautiful. Do not believe the old wife tales and think yourself completely safe from night wraiths during the day. They appear under the light of the sun as well, but are much weaker than after dusk. Okay, interesting. So if we happen to stumble on an area with some night wraiths, it would be best, if we're at night, to leave and come back during the day when they're weaker. Very, very cool. Okay, noon wraiths. Now, obviously, as suggested by the name, these ones are more apparent or more common to run into during the day, but you'll probably be able to run into them at night and they would be weaker. So, moon dust or something different? Yeah, moon dust again, specter oil, and the Erden signs. Perfect. Despite what is commonly thought, peasants do not interrupt their labors at midday to get out of the sun. They do it to avoid noon wraiths. Vlad Raymond, peasants and their customs. On particularly searing summer days, when the sun reaches its zenith, wraiths will at times appear, resembling sun-scorched women dressed in long white robes. These are noon wraiths, the spirits of young women and girls who died violent deaths right before their weddings. That is oddly specific. I think, you know what? I wonder if we learned that in The Witcher 1. I seem to remember, I'm just visualizing this small town in The Witcher 1, and there's these giant, farm fields, and I seem to remember there was a quest about these wraiths, and I wonder if they talked about that specifically, because that's ringing a bell. Violent deaths right before their weddings. Driven mad with pain or anger, they wander the fields searching for their unfaithful lovers or backstabbing rivals, though they will kill anyone who does not get out of their way in time. They are often held in this world by some object or intense emotional significance. That is why if one ever finds a wedding ring or torn veil in the middle of a field, one should not pick it up, but instead back away as quickly as possible. Very cool. Noon wraiths are only known to haunt rural areas and usually stay near the place of their deaths. They prey on peasants working in the field or children playing nearby. Noon wraiths do not bleed and are for the most part immune to the effects of Witcher signs, except for Erden, I guess. They can create mirror images of themselves, which dance their victims in a kind of morbid parody of a dance. This ghastly ritual drains their victims' life energy while adding to their own strength. Noon wraiths are also able to manipulate the physical world to a limited degree, kicking up clouds of dust which temporarily blind and disorient their opponents. Noon wraiths can turn immaterial and are at times very difficult to wound. In order to force a noon wraith to take corporeal form, one must trap it with the Erden sign or strike it with a moondust bomb, very similar to the night wraiths. Once the monster has regained physical presence, one can mount a fast attack with a silver blade, preferably one coated in specter oil. Contrary to popular belief, noon wraiths can also be encountered at night, but are much weaker than that during the day. But are much weaker than during the day. Okay, so fight noon wraiths at night, night wraiths in day. got it. Plague Maidens. Look at these special creatures. So once again, Spectre Oil and Erden. Now, when plague ravages a region, a spirit will... Oh, wait, let's go up here. Patients seem to have hallucinations of a woman covered in scabs and boils with rats scurrying about all around her. These ravings subsided after an administration of henbane and poppy extract. Joachim von Gratz's notes, Vilmerius Hospital in Novigrad. When plague ravages a region, a spirit will sometimes walk its lands, a ghost resembling an ill woman whose flesh rots off her bones and in whose wake crawls a cavalcade of rats. No one knows whether the spirit brings the pox with her or is merely drawn to it like a moth to a light. Yet it is certain that she delights in dealing pain and suffering in hearing the howling and moaning of men. Many have called into question the very existence of plague maidens, or pesti as they are sometimes called. Only 2 sightings of such a creature have ever been recorded, both during times of raging epidemic. As the name Plague Maiden suggests, these wraiths take the appearance of females, though exactly why that is remains a mystery. Some speculate they, like other such specters, arise from the powerful emotional charge associated with certain circumstances of death, such as death preceded by a long and particularly painful illness. Not much is known about how to fight a plague maiden, though one can assume they possess many traits in common with other phantoms and wraiths. They undoubtedly pose a great danger, though a witcher's immunity should at least prevent him from catching the contagious illnesses they carry. These are awesome and very well done. Very, very, very well done. I'm excited to read about all this stuff. I'm not going to go through the tutorial section because those will happen as we need them. But I believe that is pretty much everything that we need to cover right now in terms of characters, in terms of bestiary stuff. One other thing I wanted to point out for those of you that have stuck around, it's kind of cool actually, but had we gone and taken a look over here at this field, take a look at this. Take a look at this. You see all those, like, just little stumps down there? You might think that they're rocks or trees, but upon closer inspection...
So many corpses. And the war's just started.
Yeah. These are all corpses. Like, this was the battlefield that we saw, in our vision, which is just... Like, in a way, it's kind of sad. I wonder, can we... Doesn't look like we can loot that forest just yet, but... I kind of want to take just a stroll through here. We'll loot the bodies and see if maybe there's anything interesting. There's a bunch of just rusty swords, which we could either sell or break down for other materials. But I figure, you know, why not us take this stuff if someone else is gonna do it? Look at all these bodies. Blunt axes. A mace. I don't expect to run into anything like of actual value here. But we might, well, it's tough to say. There could be like a chest or something if these guys were traveling as a big group, as obviously they were. There's definitely some orans. But it appears to be mostly junk. Some ashes. Oh, look what's in the back there. What is that? There's something glowing, but what are these? It's a ghoul. I think we could probably fight these. Excuse me. Ouch. I think we poisoned him or something. Must have got a nice little critical effect going on there. There we go. I like that our stamina regenerates while we have our Quen on. That's amazing. Ghoul's blood and venom extract.
Place of power. Should draw from
it. Okay, to destroy a monster nest, you need a grape shot, samum, or dancing star bomb. Face the nest and press E to blow it up. We don't have the right bomb, so we're gonna have to leave it for now. However, oh, that's awesome. So we gain an ability point.
Ghoul nest. Ought to just destroy it.
For 30 minutes, we have a stronger Quen sign. Now, does it actually show us? Let's see here. Does it actually show us how much stronger it is? 244 physical damage reduction. It's hard to say what that was before, though. Very cool. Well, yeah, I just wanted to show this field, but then I kind of got carried away here. So the whole purpose of this episode was to go through the bestiary stuff and the character stuff. But I'm glad we came and checked out this field, because there's a ton of weapons that we just picked up that we can either dismantle or sell. We're actually almost at our max already, so I'm gonna have to be a bit careful there. But let's call Roach. Where is he? I love that he always just comes in from, like, seems to always be relatively nearby. And I wasn't going to fast travel, but I'm going to fast travel back to where we came from, which was the herbalist's hut.
Whoa there, Roach.
And I'm only doing that because this was just meant to be kind of a one-off episode, and we did manage to find a couple of cool things, though. So let's go ahead and let's see. Is it the sawmill? No. By the garrison, perhaps? No, you know what? It is here. The herbalist sawmill. Alright, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go back inside the hut where we ended off last time. Why are they freaking out because of me? It might be. So we'll rest here outside of the hut, and yeah, look at the weather now. Like, it's just, it blows me away. I'm literally just blown away. This is amazing. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye.